Hi guys, Andy here from NGB, and I'm on the line with Mr. Adam Drucker, also known as Doseone.
That's it.
That's how we
Hello,
pronounce it.
world.
Cool, excellent. He's a rapper, a poet, a producer, artist, and founder of hip hop label Anticon, as well as the Santa Fe-based art collective Meowth Wolf, and he is here to talk to us a bit today about his upcoming event, Score Wars, that he's put together. So, Adam, let's just start with Meow Wolf. Can you tell us a bit about the background of the collective, where it came from, and what its sort of manifesto is?
Absolutely. The Meow Wolf, when you describe the Meow Wolf, it sounds like you're lying and making shit up. It's a wonderful, it's an artist owned and run collective that has become a business. Originally, it's been in Santa Fe for 10 years, and it was in various shitty warehouses, and it was artists being together because they had nothing else but each other and the art they made. And eventually, it was angel funded by George R. R. Martin, who bought them a 20,000 square foot bowling alley, which they then transformed into an experiential, immersive art exhibit that you walk through. And it, in the first year, grossed over $7 million. Tons of people, 5-star Yelp reviews. Basically, the world was hungry for something that most people in the world, being myself, I'm a career artist, have always been told that no one really wants art. That art is, you must turn your art into a business to have a successful art. That's sort of what everyone always tells you. But this place has sort of broken that mold, and it made this crazy art portal that people walk into and have the best time and find themselves, and it opens people up and inspires them. So I came on, I did a room here that is an immersive, interactive experience where you play the faces of wolves and make beats in a room. Anyway, that describes it about as good as you can. So I joined this place, and then I joined the entertainment division, and I'm starting to do all sorts of things. And one of them was arranging this crazy, wonderful Gallagher championship that is Score Wars.
Yeah. So as you say, Score Wars is pitching itself as Gallagher World Championship. It's running in Santa Fe at Meow Wolf from the 29th of March to the 1st of April 2018. And you say this was your idea. So, I mean, where did the idea for that come from? Is this something that you've kind of been carrying around for a while? That
Well, actually, it's an idea that it started speaking to me after it was brought. So the way this actually started was Vince, who is the CEO of Meow Wolf. He used to play Galaga. It's his favorite game in the world. He's quite good at it. He used to play it in the room where we're doing Score Wars when Meow Wolf was a bowling alley when he was a child.
cool.
So they were having some conversation, and they turned to me, and he was like, because I do independent video game soundtracks
Yep.
and design, and then a little bit of design. And so they know I did games, so they just kind of looked at me and were like, "Hey, could you do a Gallagher tournament?" And I was like, maybe. And then, and it was like the rest was honestly, I mean, I have no experience doing events, and I have a deep ongoing I have every console ever made at my house.
Cool.
I'm not a Galaga aficionado. So this actually, once I started getting in touch with people like Dwayne Richard, who is in Man vs. Snake, and the community and culture that is these players that are still the best in the world at these games, I was like, yeah, this is really beautiful. And these dudes don't get a chance to compete in a way they should. It's sort of like, the lamb that time forgot. So
Mm.
they are the very best in the universe at this. Yet, what, if no one wants to see you, you're just like buried treasure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So getting to know these men, we just tried to really create a tournament that allowed the talent and players to have a great time. And starting as a battle rapper, I was a part of many tournaments that were corrupt or doomed from the start, and the best people can't win because of either bureaucracy or just the vibe. So we tried to create something where they can just come and just destroy scores and be amongst their peers and have a really good time saying bullshit.
That's cool. But the other part of Score Wars, as well as the Gallagher Tournament, is that there is going to be a showcase there of other retro titles, from Pac-Man through Frogger, and other games from the 1980s. So, from the artist side of you, do you see that as being kind of its own sort of art installation, focusing on that era of video games and maybe bringing it to a younger audience that aren't aware of it?
Yeah, and also it's just like, I mean, there's this thing about the universe where whether you work really hard and get a talent through muscle memory and practice, or you're just born with a gift, or a combination of the two. For me, I've always had such significant experiences when I'm actually physically close to someone who is entirely exceptional at something. And these guys Dwayne explained it to me, and I didn't understand it at first, but he was like, look, man, the difference between you and everyone who's kind of good at Galaga and the people who can score 1,000,000 points is like vast. And the difference between people who can score 1,000,000 points and 3,000,000 points, that's like 5 people. You know what I mean? So it really is, there's this crazy curve, and being around these people is inspiring. Like seeing someone shred a game that hands you your head is really cool. So I'm hoping that there's two things I want. One, to just be around that greatness, and that level of excellence is like inspiring for anyone, whether you're 5 or 50. And then also, too, for them, they get seen and felt. Not literally, but their presence here, I think, will be appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that appreciating them is like what I'm all about, because the other thing too is like with these marathon runs, like, they don't let you do that in the universe. Like, no matter how nice your barcade owner is, he's not going to let you stay open for 50 hours. You know what I mean? So we're basically facilitating that comfortability and availability to like kick ass like they can. And then also another thing that Dwayne helped me establish was that one of the problems with like Kong Off and the big Pac-Man tournament is that some of those machines are just brought in, and you'll be in the middle of an 8-hour run and your joystick breaks. So we built all of our cabinets from scratch with brand new buttons and joysticks, and of course original motherboards. So we are trying to make this like, just aerodynamic for what they can do best.
So, I mean, in respect of the kind of the wider aspect of it, of the sort of the focus on the older games, is this something that you would like to see be made into a more permanent fixture? Maybe something that could evolve over time and introduce new eras and new genres.
Exactly. So what my plan is, I'm gonna pretend this is a secret, but this is a publicly released thing, so we'll just pretend it's a secret. But
I won't
basically,
tell anyone. It's okay.
yeah, it's totally. Shh. Everybody out there. So the reality is, this is the first one, and I think it's really appropriate to start with our forefathers. You know what I mean? Like, the reason there are more video games is because these grown men were great at them when they were children. It was a significant factor in making games more difficult and judging the popularity, and like, so tribute to them. And then it becomes an annual event. And next year I'm looking to do a roguelike championship, which would involve games like Binding of Isaac, Spelunky, Enter the Gungeon, Nuclear Throne, and hopefully Rogue itself. So going to streaming culture and modern indie games that people are incredibly passionate about, and then toggling, rinse and repeat. We show all the cultures that surround these games and allow them to like compete. The cool thing about, like, with Galaga, we had to work with Bandai Namco, which is a gigantic, ancient, siloed company. When we work with indie devs, one of the really exciting things is I know them all personally, and we can really start to do some really, like, the same way that what these players need to have the best time on earth is that the parameters for success are perfect. Like the game is right and all these things. And for the indie devs, I think it's going to be really cool to like make unique versions of the games themselves for these people to enjoy and become champions at. So, and I want to toggle between the two. And then with Score Wars too, we have another really, because I come from indie culture and we do game jams, and that's how I kind of got into indie games, was you just make a game from scratch with a couple other game developers. So we have a game jam running all week and across the weekend, and then Sunday we're going to have our, the best game players in the world play these fucked up game jams, no matter how broken they are or whatever. And it should be really interesting and expose them to something that I think some of them may not even know that game jam culture exists. So really, like, we would do the same. I want to just really bring everyone together in a non-corny, divisive way.
No, that sounds cool. I mean, obviously you're sort of talking about the benefits there of indie development being, not having the kind of the same shackles as the sort of the big budget development. Obviously, modern big budget game titles are pushing constantly for more realism and more visual fidelity and more cinematic quality in their games. Again, sort of from an artistic point of view, do you feel that perhaps the more indie games have potentially more artistry over the larger budget games because they work with that smaller budget and that limited visual and audio tool set that they have to kind of push for more artistry?
They do, and also I think that there are like barriers to true artistic expression entering the rigidity of what makes a good game, right? It's not all game, games can be art, and sometimes the word game is a curse because it means silly, fun, toy, whatever it is, right? Sometimes it's a beautiful word. To me, I see it both ways, but the reality of why I think indie games get a little more artsy is because, like, if you have a cat in your indie game and you want it to have the voice of your cat, you just fucking record your cat and give it that voice. In other companies, you would, go get a real cat that you recorded a Foley studio. There's like, there's levels of bureaucracy and so many people on a AAA title that actually what you get is immaculate levels of polish. Because so many people can contribute their talents. But on an indie level, you get maximum fingerprint. So exactly what that person's aesthetic is. So games like Undertale are so like the way, like, when you look at a crazy person's sketchbook and it's like oozing their personality while still possessing all these sketches. There's something about the small nature of an indie dev team and the closeness of those people that allows the games to capture a little bit more personality and a little bit more nuance of the few people that actually came from. Whereas that's incredibly hard to like get. I don't even know how many people work on SOCOM, but how could you get like fucking 700 people's nuance into anything? You know what I mean? So I think that's what drew me back into games was, AAA titles kind of wrung me out. And then I started finding Spelunky, where even just procedurally generated games and roguelikes where you're getting better at playing the game, but you can never get better at playing the boards. That just blew my mind. I was like, what? This is what I always wanted. It's like I could play Mario and it's never the same twice. I'm in. So lots of stuff, and I think that simplicity is really nice. And then that said, there's still a lot to be like. Breath of the Wild is the greatest thing ever made. You can't mess with Zelda. So
no, you can't.
right, totally. So it's one of those things. It's give or take. But now though, you can see in the AAA titles that they're being dramatically influenced by the resonant personal nature of some indie games.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the games as art conversation is one that's kind of gone round and round for a long time. I mean, famously, Roger Ebert, I think it was very adamant for quite a long time that video games couldn't be art.
Right.
But
that's fucking wrong. That's been proven.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people disagree. When you look at games like, say, Journey, and you mentioned things like Undertale. And for you, is there sort of any one or any subset of games that you could say a kind of, if someone were to disagree with you to say games can't be art, what would you show them to prove them wrong?
I would show them Proteus. Proteus is groundbreaking in many ways. One, it's groundbreaking in its confidence and its simplicity. Two, it's groundbreaking in the fact that there is no antagonist. Mm-hmm. You are just doing you before anyone was really prepared to even. So for a million years, people probably made games like that and threw them away because no one won and no one died and no one made loot. You know what I mean? And the confidence in just creating a world that is for exploring and making it layered in secrecy. It's really, it's hard. It's the argument. You get a game like that is so artistic. It's actually, you find yourself arguing, is it a game? And I think that's the line where you have clearly transitioned into a realm of new logics. So you're basically like, well, if I'm arguing if this is even a game, then it has to be something. You might as well call it art, because you can't call it reality. You know what I mean? So it's, and I think that's one of the games for me that really transcended that. And then there's even more resonant games, like Papers, Please, and games that are actually about like immigration and the gamifying of social patterns that are based on reality and how people actually behave, and you becoming aware of that as you play. It's, to me, and then again too, I think that most people that make this argument about games not being art, they're just still wanting games to be games. And I have a line where, even though I work on artsy games and I love artsy games, for me, at the end of the day, I want to like lower my IQ and play a stupid game that is just a game. So I appreciate both. So when I make this argument, I completely come from a space of understanding the purity of games and the joy of just running a perfect play loop. It's like, it's also a beautiful thing. I don't think they compete, and I think some people that argue about this think that you can't have apples and oranges and eat them too, but you can.
Sometimes you want a 3-course meal, sometimes you just want fast food.
Totally.
Okay, so going back again to, you touched on your career as working with indie developers, obviously doing soundtracks for games like Enter the Gungeon and Nidhogg 2. You've worked as a musical artist with Mike Patton as the Nevermen, and obviously Mike Patton has famously provided some voiceover work for a number of video games in his career, including The Darkness. Is that something that you would consider doing voice work in games, or are you purely focused on the audio, the music side of things?
Yeah, I do voice work. I gotta say, I will never be Mike fucking Patton, that goddamn dude. Holy shit. Watching him, he's one of the few musicians where, like, being close to him when he belts out a note or pushes his voice to its potential, you jump a little. It's like, it makes your skin shirk. He's so potent. It's crazy. Anyway, that said, I do all the creature design and voices in all of my games, and I actually work on cartoons, and I do quite a bit of that. It comes really naturally to me. I don't know if I'd ever do it only. I always do it for all of my babies, because it's like the easiest part is like, I'm actually always, because I do that stuff, like there's so many things when you're comprising and making up all the assets for a game before it exists. So many of them are really hard to do, and you're like soul searching for the theme music or whatever it is, and then like getting to make all the monster noises is the fun, easy part of my job every time. I'm waiting till I'm in the best mood possible to attack that stuff, because it's such a blast, man.
Well, maybe that's where the AAA games are going wrong. They should just get Hideo Kojima in to do all of the the creature voices and sound effects, and then they'd save themselves millions.
Totally, man. Did you see, I don't know if you're a fan of Twin Peaks, but it's probably the most influential. That's humanity's gift to the universe, in my public opinion. David Lynch is a god. But one of the things that I noticed in the new season that he did is that he did all the sound design himself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, he did not need to do that shit. He wanted to. And that, to me, is just as inspiring as the episodes. It's just mind-blowing when career artists like that are like, no, I'm going to do the sound design. I want to do that too. It's so cool, man. So yeah, Kojima, if you're out there listening to this, do your own creatures, man.
I mean, maybe he does and we just don't know.
Totally, maybe he does, yeah.
Okay, well, it's been great talking to you about Score Wars. I've just got a couple more questions just about you and video games.
Sure.
But you've made me want to jump on a plane and go over to Santa Fe right now. Score Wars sounds like it's going to be such a cool event, and I'm really looking forward to reading up more about it. But just, yeah, I mean, you're obviously very well versed in video games. What's your earliest video game memory?
Whoa. My uncle. Shit. Wait. I guess I have a few. One of my earliest, like my first console, the first time I ever stayed up till 2 in the morning was the first Zelda. And I'll never forget, like, playing Zelda, burning bushes, opening swords with bushes with swords, and then I turned around and I was like, "What are those numbers on the clock?" You know? And I was a child, and then my other memory is I remember going into an arcade and wanting to play Dragon's Lair, and I had $5, and it was my first money anxiety I ever had as a human being, where I was like, I want to get lunch and eat pizza, but I also just want to play Dragon's Lair. And I remember looking at a $5 bill being like, how do I do it all? And that is literally one of my very first memories, centered around video games, but involving many things. Oh, and I also wanted to play something on the jukebox. So that really ripped me in three directions.
Pizza, Dragon's Lair, jukebox, which is the most important out of all of those. Can you have
Totally.
all at the same time?
Yeah.
So, are you playing anything? What are you currently playing at the moment?
Right now, I am playing. There's a wonderful indie game called Owlboy.
Yep.
It was worked on for an eternity and has just stunning pixel art. And I finally got it on the Switch because I'm so busy these days that I have to make my video game time, which sucks. But at least I'm busy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Owlboy I've been digging into, and then I am also playing Iconoclast, which is another indie game that just came out recently. And then I have game nights at my house, so we play like Gang Beasts and Push Me Pull You and Ultimate Chicken Horse, all the group games that are just inexplicably joyous.
Well, Gang Beasts is certainly a lot of fun. We've had a few games of that over at NGB, and can't get enough of that game. So yeah, and certainly the Switch is an essential machine for anyone on the go, and it's got so many indie titles available for it. So
yeah, they're killing it. They're doing a great job. They're flooding. They kind of have like Apple iStore disease a little bit right now, but it's okay. What are you gonna do? At least we have choices.
Absolutely. At least there's games on a Nintendo console this generation.
Yeah. Well, no, because that was my big issue with the Wii U was they just were not embracing the wonderful indies, and I was getting all these sort of third-party meh things, lots of like PG, like rated E for everyone stuff.
Yeah.
Not that I need blood or violence, but there was a sort of banal nature to a lot of that stuff on the Wii U, and it's nice that they broke out of that.
There's some cool stuff coming out for the Switch, definitely. Last question for tonight. If you could pick one game of your greatest game of all time, say you were being sent to a desert island, you knew there was power and you could take a console with you in one game, what would it be?
Oh, man. I've had this one before. I think it's Spelunky, man. I fucking love that game. You play it over and over again. I mean, if I'm alone on a desert island, I think that's the one. I would want something that can frustrate and elate me in perpetuity.
Cool. Excellent. No, that sounds like just the sort of thing for when you're alone and probably on the brink of madness. Here's a few rounds of Spelunky.
I love this desert island where we have like power and we can run a video game.
But you're only allowed one.
Yeah, right. So it's really great.
When you break it down like that, the question sounds so illogical. Well, Adam, thank you so much. It's been really awesome talking to you. Like I say, I wish I could attend Score Wars. It sounds like an awesome event. We'll see what we can do. It would be really cool to make our way over there. But we hope everything goes all right. Hope the event goes well, and good luck to everyone taking part in it. And hopefully there'll be some people coming away from it with a bit more of an understanding of that era of video games and a bit more of an appreciation, and just having a load of fun. And
yeah, we're exposing them. It's a window to a world.
Absolutely.
open it. Yeah, thank you for the
But
time and interest. It means the world to me, Andrew.
no problem, Adam. Thank you very much.